In this video, I want to create two functions which will take a text string and check whether it's a palindrome. A palindrome is a word that can be read forwards the same way as it can backwards. For example, racecar, which if you write that backwards, it would be racecar. So it is a palindrome. The simple solution will use the fact that a text string is actually a list, and the more complicated one will first have to remove any characters that aren't letters, and then it will do the check afterwards. For instance, the Danish palindrome, the blue eel's bit, which I want to test because this has a Danish character of the O, and I want to check that Python understands that this is also a letter. Alternatively, in order to have some punctuation, we can have the English palindrome, a man, a plan, a canal, Panama, where in the complicated solution, I need to remove the punctuation. So in the simple case, I want to take an argument which is just text, where I want to start out with assuming that it's not a palindrome, and then I will change this text string if it is a palindrome. So my result is that my text isn't a palindrome, and then a new line. So the point is that if my next condition is false, then I already have the result, and if it is true, then I update my result. And I want to take into account that you're allowed to write racecar with a capital R, so I want to first convert the text into the lowercase version. So if my text.lower is identical to my text.lower, but where I use the fact that a text string is a list, I can say square brackets : -1, which will reverse the list. So in the case that you have a palindrome, these two would be identical, assuming you don't have any punctuation or any spaces. So if this is the case, then I want to update my result variable to instead be equal to your text is a palindrome. So I can actually just copy paste that. And then we can add some fun stuff to add a smiley. Then I can figure out afterwards if Python wants to print this text. So now I've either updated my result variable or I haven't changed it at all, meaning I can return this output. And actually, since I don't want to use the palindrome for anything, I can, instead of returning something, I can just say that the output of this function is simply to print the result variable. So this is a design choice. And then just to test it, I can say I want to run my symbol where I pass in the text racecar. And actually, I don't have to write print because the function does the printing for me. And I can see that I forgot here that in this second lower, I need open close parentheses because it's a function. I have to do my list slicing before that. So if I try to run it now that I fixed that, I can see that yes, my text racecar is a palindrome and I want to have a space before this. Actually, no, I want it here. So now racecar is a palindrome, but racecar is not a palindrome. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but if I have a space in it, I want to be able to remove that space, which means I don't actually care about the symbol function anymore, so I can just hide it. And actually, before I hide it, I want to copy this part because I'm going to reuse that in my function right after. So complicated will also take my text as an input, but I first want to remove any characters that aren't letters. And conveniently, there's a function that does that, the filter function, which acts on any iterable. So to begin, I want to create a new variable checkText where I convert my text into the lower version. And this is simply because I'm going to do that anyway. And I want to keep my text because I want the user to be told, well, this is the unaltered version of their text. First, I convert capital letters into small letters. I then want to update checkText using the quotation.join method, meaning I want to take an iterable and then join each item in that iterable, the output of the iterable. I want to join them together and I don't want to add, for example, a space between the characters. I just want them to be combined in one go, which means that the blue eel's bit here would become this. And actually the D would also be small, because then I can simply check if the text written this way is equal to the text written the other way. And then what I want is to use the filter function, which takes an iterable again, and then it applies a function. So this is like any other filter function in any other language, but the trick is that they want the function first and then the iterable. And my function is a string function. String is alpha. I don't have to put the open close parentheses, which is fine, because I guess the filter function understands that it has to apply the function to each item of my iterable. And then my actual iterable is then the current version of checkText. So I remove non-letters here, and I got the example from this page. So I need to remember to quote that, meaning I've already converted the capital letters to small letters and removed anything that isn't a letter, including a space. And then I can do the same check as above. And actually, I also wanted to copy the result part. So this is actually the same. And actually thinking about it, I should be able to then call my simple function inside of my complicated function. So I just want to check if that works. Because I have literally copy pasted these 4 lines and this is the same thing here. So I just want to check if that would work. My complicated function then converts the text and then it spits it into the simple function, which then does the actual check. So I don't want the simple function to use my text, I want it to use check text. And again, it will print as part of the function. So I just want to see if this works, because that would be nice. Then I can reuse code. So my text, the problem is then that it did remove the extra space at the end here, but because I've converted that text into the small version, that means I don't write racecar back with a capital R, I write racecar back with a small r. So if I try the long version, you can see it spits it out without the capital D and without the spaces. So this would work, but it alters the original text, which I don't want it to do. So I'm just going to not do that. I'm not going to call the function, and I then need to add the reason. So I am just going to uncomment this. And then I can try it again. And it says it is not a palindrome, which it definitely should be. So that's not right. And I can see here that my problem is that actually I copy pasted code, which can be dangerous because I don't want to check my text against my text. I want to check text against itself, but the inverted version. So copy pasting can be dangerous. Yeah, I expect that. And lastly, I can check the second palindrome, which has punctuation. Not that I expect it to be any different, but it's always nice to check. So yeah, so that is what I expected. But I of course don't want to actually have this hard-coded like so. I actually want an input. So I could do something more complicated with a loop where the window stays open and you can decide whether to use the simple or complicated version of the function. But you may as well use the complicated version. So I can really just hide this or delete it, but I want to keep it just to show how to do the simple version. So all I want is to say that I have an input, which is what text do you want to check. And then I like having the new line character inside. So if we just show what that looks like, it means you have to write here on the next line, and I like that. And then I want that to be a variable, and then this is what I pass into the function. And then I need to make sure that I want the window to stay open, so I can just do input open close. So now if I run that, it asks me to type in the palindrome, and test palindrome is not a palindrome, which I expect. Meanwhile, a man, a plan, a canal, Panama is a palindrome, which means I can save the code and run it like a normal Python file. And it asks me what text do I want to check. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama, and it is a palindrome. Congrats. And I expected it to not be able to print the font characters, but I can live with that. And then all you have to do to close is just hit enter. So